Like I often say on my channel, being mobile is key to having success in the outdoors, especially when it comes to whitetail hunting. I'm going to share with you exactly one of the ways I get super mobile and get away from a lot of the pressure, and how I get there is a lot different than you might think. Stay tuned. So it's really no secret that people use kayaks, just like this one back here, to find mobile hunting spots that have low pressure. And when I talk about crossing rivers or lakes, I'm not talking about small rivers or creeks that you can kind of just wade across, but for large rivers or even lakes that you cannot possibly wade across no matter what, you're going to need something else. You're going to want a kayak similar to this one right here. Check this out. It's got plenty of storage in the back, and you've got storage up here in the front. Let me show you how I get my stand and sticks, my hunting pack, and my bow rigged up on the kayak. The reason why this is so universal is because if you have a sit on top kayak, not a sit in the whole kayak, you're much better off using that for hunting. And many people use that because maybe they go fishing in their kayak like I do anyway. You want to sit on top kayak like this one right here. You want one that you sit on top, not sit inside of, because it offers you so much flexibility with storage. I'm going to start with the stand back here first. What I did with this is pretty simple. Just like most fishing kayaks or sit on top kayaks, they offer storage in the back. I'm going to take this bungee strap here, and in my particular case, I'm going to go through one of these areas in the cast aluminum. This is a Lone Wolf Assault 2 with the climbing sticks attached to the side over here. I've got them on these talons already, so they're not going anywhere. These are attached to the stand. I don't need to worry about the sticks. I need to worry about getting these bungees right here attached to the stand to keep this on my little trek. Now, this is stand kind of like V's out this way, and that's the actual size of the storage area. You can see how this V actually fits here with the shape of the kayak. So what I do is I take this strap and I have it come through the cast aluminum right here. Notice that I came underneath the stand like that, and I happen just to put this over on this side right here. I just bungee it down over on this side. Now, the same thing with that bungee strap on the other side. I reach through and just pull it like this. I put it on here, down on that side right over there. So it's equal. Now, it's gonna move around a little bit, but I'm literally just trying to get to where I need to go. This isn't for traveling on top of your car. This is simply just crossing a river or going up a creek or something. That's it. So you're not gonna be doing some crazy things going through whitewater rapids and all of that. Then I'm gonna grab my pack right here. This is just a simple backpack I use. I don't have anything fancy for my pack. That goes on my stand when I walk into the woods anyway. It secures right there. It fits on top of the seat, in between the climbing sticks on either side, and it goes on the kayak just how I would carry it in the woods. So when I get to my destination across the river, I don't need to monkey around with refiguring my stuff. I grab my stand and I go. You don't need anything more fancy than bungee straps to keep your backpack or your hunting pack on your stand itself. Don't spend a lot of money with this because it's not necessary. So once again for this, I just take my bungee strap, put it somewhere on the cast aluminum. I tend to go through this top loop of my backpack so it's, attached to something, and then strap it down over here. But that's over here. I kind of just make the letter X, as you can see right there. Same thing over here. I'm just going to attach that, go down, and put that on the cast aluminum on that side. This is going to hold it on. I might reconfigure where I attach it, but that's the general idea. It keeps it on when I'm carrying it in the woods and when I'm crossing a river or a lake with this kayak setup right here. Let's get to the bow setup over there. That's the most complicated setup and the one you need to be the most careful with, just because you don't want to bump your sight and all that stuff. So this is how I put my bow on here. It is not pretty, but I know it works and I'm satisfied with it. My feet, because of the height I'm at, actually rest right here and over here. They don't touch the bow, they don't touch the cam or this limb at all. It's completely in front on the kayak, and I'm very careful as I'm paddling. I don't want to bump anything like the sight or anything because I don't want to mess this up. I have to be super careful with the arrows so those don't crack with pressure from anything. So what I do is I take the bungee straps that come on the kayak down here, and your kayak probably has bungee straps too. It might be a different size, but it generally will work. I'm going to move the bungee strap and connect it to this bungee strap behind the quiver right here. So basically underneath where they meet. There. So now it's underneath the quiver right here. Let me actually take the quiver off, give you a better idea how that works. You see how that's on there? So instead of putting the straps over top of the arrows and putting pressure on there, this is on here like this. It's locked in. It's not touching the sight right here. I don't have any limbs or anything rubbing on the hull. Most of the pressure is right down here on this part of the bow against the life jacket right there. Now you can use a towel. There are a lot of things you can do. You can even put your bow back here and keep everything in one spot. Maybe that's a good idea for you. I don't know. And how I connect these bungee straps, instead of stretching them way over and overextending it over here and putting so much pressure, right? Bows don't weigh that much. You don't need a lot of pressure. You just need to keep this out of the water, and in case you flip the kayak, it stays with the kayak instead of sinking to the bottom of the lake or the river. And what I do for that is I make sure these bungees are connected with a simple little carabiner just like that. That's the system I use, because then when I get there, I unclip this, my bow is free, I'm instantly ready to go and hunt. What I do is I take my quiver, I put it back on, I lock it in there. Now it's locked in place. This bow isn't going anywhere. I'm moving the bow and the entire kayak is moving. That's how secure this is. You don't need a lot of security with this because it's going to stay. It doesn't weigh very much, but it's very secure. There's 2 more items you're going to need. You're going to need a paddle, of course, to get you across the river or the lake. And the other thing you must have, and please do this, it's a life jacket for yourself. Now here in Wisconsin, it gets brutally cold. Today the wind chill is like 20 degrees and it's the middle of October. And so if you're crossing water, especially a river with current or even a lake where you can't touch the bottom, you are foolish not to use a life jacket. Wear one for yourself. Okay, so a question some of you might have is that, okay, Corey, so I go across the water, I've got a major buck that I'm pursuing on this unpressured public land. What if I shoot the buck? How do I get it out with a kayak? And I have 2 answers for you. Well, technically 3, but 2. This is answer number 1. Answer number 1 is something you should do at your own risk, because I have seen people do this online. I've never done this myself, but I've seen people do this online. This is probably not the smartest thing to do, but it is an option. You can technically take a rope, just like this one, tie it to the back of your kayak, maybe on something like this, extend it out and actually drag a deer through the water, because you can do something that's kind of silly, but works. If you want to bring an extra life jacket for the deer, you can actually put a life jacket on a deer. You gut it out, it's going to save a lot of weight, although gutting out a deer actually makes it not so great in the water, to be honest. So maybe you keep the guts in, then float it back, depends on the temperature. But you can actually put a life jacket on a buck and have it float behind the kayak. Now in a lake without current, that's fine. A short little crossing, that's fine. But if you're going a far distance, like a mile across a lake or something, or up a small creek where the water's shallow and the buck's gonna get caught on everything, like trees sticking out of the water, that's not a good option. So that is an option, but it's not the best option. But if it's your only option, it might be something worth considering at your own risk. The better option, in my opinion, is to take a canoe like this one. The best case scenario is putting the deer right in the middle of the canoe. There's plenty of space, trust me. And you sit in the back and your buddy sits in the front. That way there's 2 of you bringing this deer back across the water safely. That's probably the best case scenario. But there is another option as well. If the water is deep enough and you can use a motor, I highly suggest, because this will be the easiest for sure, after you want to bring a deer out, right? Not going to the deer, but getting the deer out of the woods across the river or the lake. I would recommend using a boat like this with an actual gas motor like this. The reason why an aluminum boat like this that's meant for the outdoors is my recommendation is because those boats can go where a lot of big boats can't. You have plenty of stability. You've got a big engine in the back, at least for that boat of that size. And it doesn't matter if you get blood and mud and all kinds of crap on the boat. It doesn't matter. You just spray it out when you go home. So I have a little bonus item that I recommend. It's a dry bag. Now, I'm not talking about a dry bag in case you tip over. If you tip over, your hunt is done. Go home. Get things figured out. I just mean like splashing from your paddle and stuff. Keeping a dry bag, you can stuff a lot of equipment in there, especially expensive camera gear. Maybe you don't want your flashlight getting wet. It's not super waterproof. Cell phones, all that kind of stuff. Put it in here. Warm clothes, outer layers, those kinds of things. That's a good option as well. And you can just find a space in your kayak. Maybe it goes between your legs when you're paddling. Carabiner it on. Everything in your kayak for this setup is strapped onto the kayak. So everything is here. If this thing flips, nothing is going into the water and staying in the water. This is all strapped down securely. That seat is securely strapped. I may have a lot of wet equipment, but I'm not losing anything if this tips over. I'm just going to have a really bad day and I need to dry stuff off and rethink my next trip. But this in a nutshell is how I set things up for crossing rivers or lakes that you cannot wade across. In a perfect world, I would wade across a river, but sometimes you need to use watercraft such as a kayak, canoe, or a boat, where many boats would bottom out and have trouble, especially boats that you have to use a motor, which is pretty much all of them. A kayak or canoe does not struggle in rivers like this. Look at how this comes up here when the river's low. Your boat's going to get stuck there, plus you make a lot of noise. Motors create a lot of noise that can spook deer, and you're letting a lot of other people know where you're hunting. Part about hunting to me is not letting people know, because that increases your odds of them pressuring the area you're trying to hunt. So using a canoe or a kayak in these situations is brilliant. And sometimes it's just not a matter of getting from here to there. It's a matter of putting your kayak in at some kind of access point, maybe a culvert or a bridge or something like that. And maybe it's not public right there, maybe it's private, but you sneak your kayak there by the bridge, by the road, and you paddle up to where it's public land. We have a lot of areas like that in Wisconsin where it's private by the road. You paddle up or downstream in your kayak or canoe, and you can get to some public land areas that are kind of landlocked by private land owners. Now, a canoe isn't always great, simply because it's hard for one person to control a canoe, especially in the wind. However, they do make small canoes that are better for one person, but the canoe I have is like 17 and a half, 18 feet long. You get any wind or current, it's not good for one person. That's why I recommend a kayak. If you'd like to find deer fast, and I mean like now, as in the next time you go deer hunting, watch this video right here. I promise it's going to help, and make sure you subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.